morning, good afternoon, good evening. My apologies for the late start with some technical problems and to restart the whole program. But tonight we'd like to talk about Venezuela. Many Zimbabweans have been riveted with what has been going on there. And for good reason, because there are so many things that the two countries, Zimbabwe and Venezuela, have in common. One of them is that for the last 25 years, Venezuela has had a dictatorship. And Zimbabwe, ever since our independence, we have had a dictatorship. And the economy in Venezuela has all but collapsed. In Zimbabwe, same thing. And millions of Venezuelans have left the country as economic/political refugees, and Zimbabwe similarly. So we'd like to talk about Zimbabwe, Venezuela, and Donald Trump in the same vein. So we'd like to start with a short clip on history of Venezuela, to just get some of us who are not up to speed.
Want to learn about Venezuela? I'm getting the board. Whoever said teaching wasn't physical? All right, people want to know about what's going on between the United States and Venezuela, but in order to understand what's going on today, Venezuela and the U.S. I've decided to do this chronologically because I feel like doing history metaphorically difficult. Number one, pre-1998. Pre-1998, Venezuela had a huge oil supply, actually, biggest in the world, and the biggest stakeholder was a U.S. company called Exxon. Why is this important? Because of their huge oil supply in Venezuela, Exxon took it over. So the vast amount of profit, the percentage of profit, went to the U.S., and Venezuela as a country got next to nothing. And because of this, their economy started to fail. And as their economy started to fail, guess what? Been and saved themselves from God knows who. From the United States. How do I get steak and oil companies is taking over the entire world? Number two, 1998. That's not right. I hate it when I can't write numbers properly. Hugo Chavez was a democratically elected president of Venezuela. Now, once he got in, again I say democratically, he started to push towards authoritarianism, and he started reducing the checks and balances of the democratic system. Side point, does that remind you of anybody else? He also started to rewrite the Constitution to solidify his dictatorial power. Parallels are really uncanny. In 2002, a woman named Maria Machado, ignore how I said that, but keep that name locked in your head because she's going to be important later, created an organization called SUMAT in order to overthrow the Chavez government. Psst, who do you think was funding her operation? You guessed it. W. Bush, President of the United States at the time, was funding her through the National Endowment of Democracy. You know what? People just make up names to mean anything nowadays. So through this National Democracy, the United States funded Machado in order to overthrow Chavez. And when it didn't work, Bush said, not my problem, I didn't know anything about it. And she was eliminated from all political life going forward. And then, in 2002, Bush... Number four, in 2007, Chavez, reinvigorated with power and an authoritarian regime, decided to nationalize Venezuelan oil. Ruh-roh. That meant that Venezuela took all of Exxon's money, all their oil, and all their access to oil and shifted the lion's share of profits back to Venezuela and left Exxon, well, not a lot of money. P.S. Exxon then sued and won $1.4 billion in a claim. But what kind of international police force are we going to get for Venezuela to be forced to pay Exxon? None. After that huge shift of economic power, a day, way down to 700,000 barrels a day due to corruption and, let's be honest, informal sanctions put on them by the United States because they just stole a bunch of their money from corporations. Stole might be a U.S. word, considering the oil was considered a Venezuelan resource, but who's counting? Imperialism at a 10, don't they? Ooh, new chalk. Number 5, a guy named Madero, used to be the VP of Chavez, takes over, and he starts building an even stronger authoritarian government. I forgot the year. 2013. Obama calls the drug cartel and this particular regime a threat to democracy and national security of the United States. That's then followed by Trump putting on economic sanctions in 2017. Are you with me so far? This is about to get interesting. I mean, even more corrupt. 6, 25. I brought you right up to the present. Maria. Remember I told you to remember that name, wins the Nobel Peace Prize. And who does she dedicate it to? None other. It's at this point that Donald Trump begins attacking boats, Venezuelan boats, calling them drug cartels, talking about democracy to Venezuela, and talking about how they're gotta go in and save some people. Oh, and P.S. Donald Trump wants his oil back. It's the ending that's really gonna get you. Why Donald Trump is doing this is why. I think the answer is gonna surprise you a little bit. Number 1, he is going to claim that he is going to liberate Venezuela. Guys, always be careful when the United States of America liberates anyone. Usually it means they're going to take it. And he's going to install Maria, normally excommunicated from all political life, but she's going to serve a purpose. Number 2, Chado will then give oil rights.
My apologies. We simply have very poor quality there. But I think we get the message of that video. Ben, what do you have to say to that one?
Good day to everybody, and thank you for joining us. Now, there will always be a lot of conspiracy theories that will come up with this whole Venezuela US, president arrest or take over and so forth. But, we would want to look at it I would want to look at it this way. Whenever you have an authoritarian regime or government or a dictatorship, you open doors to the outside world for takeover. Because one, the takeover has already been done from within. Your people are open to the idea. Your people invite the idea of liberation. They don't really care where it comes from. Look at Venezuela. Venezuela has been doing terribly. A country that is rich in oil, and has queues for gas and petrol or diesel. That shows there is something terribly wrong with the system. And when you have your people finding it difficult to get the thing that you have the most, again, I can just imagine what it is like to find something that needs to be imported. So when your people are disgruntled, they are open to the idea to say there's somebody that is actually stopping this dictator for us, and we have to support them. And recently, when you go through social media, you find even the people of Zimbabwe are open to the idea. They are wondering when next is our turn. And as a dictatorship, the Zimbabwean government should be worried because half the job has already been done by your people opening that door. It's scary. It's scary for any dictatorship out there. And they must know that the people of their country, the citizens of their country, will open that door when the time comes.
Well, that is very true. I think the brief history there shows as much as many people can appreciate that Venezuela has a lot of wealth, mineral wealth. This is very comparable to our own Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, we have got a lot of mineral wealth and other resources. And unfortunately, that has not reflected in the nation's wealth. In the case of Venezuela, having so much wealth has become more of a curse than a blessing. There is no doubt that the emergence of Chavez, for instance, was as a result of democratic elections. But like the lady tried to explain there, the minute he was in power, he tried to usurp the people's power and became a dictator. And that was only going to help or encourage the people to be discontent. And with corruption, of course, with a dictatorship comes corruption. And as much as one would say, yes, the sanctions that were imposed by the West accelerated Venezuela's economic decline, nonetheless, corruption also played a part in mismanagement. So the two nations' history so far, Zimbabwe and Venezuela, is comparable. The one thing, however, I would like to point out here is that when we had our 2017 military coup, particularly, we celebrated that. And many people have been comparing it to what is happening in Venezuela now. I would like to argue that the two countries actually, on that score, they are totally different. The opposition in Zimbabwe has been ZANU-PF Team B in all but name. And much more so following the 2017 military coup. Because it was the opposition that encouraged the people to go out on the street and show their support of the regime. It was a stupid move. because there was absolutely no evidence that the military coup was going to bring about any meaningful democratic change. It was meant to replace one dictator with another, and that is exactly what happened. I would like to believe that the opposition in Venezuela is not part and parcel of the dictatorship. And I would like to believe that the people of Venezuela are not naive to come out the same way and celebrate the removal of Maduro the same way we did. But beyond that, one can only say time will tell. So we really don't know what's going to happen next. But all we can wish for is that they will not make the same mistakes that Zimbabweans made. I'd like to move on to another issue, which was actually one of the titles there, how Trump has managed to surprise everybody, including his own Western allies.
And I can't say, it was a surprise. I mean, I remember on this program, we spoke, just after the election of Donald Trump. And we knew that it was going to be one of those topsy-turvy kind of leadership and days where we are going to find some very controversial decisions and very abrupt decisions. We knew that. And just within a few, months, he had gone to even extent of saying he wanted Canada to be the 51st state. He had said he wanted to own Greenland, and so many other quite, controversial statements. So we knew exactly what was going on. But, what I want to look at, is countries that America has gone into and tried and fixed are all countries that had problems with dictators. That's the common denominator there. They have never gone in a country that is doing perfectly fine and disrupted everything. So this comes back to what I was saying, to say, when you have a dictatorship, your people, your citizens open the door to outsiders to take over, because they are impoverished, they are hungry, they are complaining, they are fighting, and you are fighting them back. And it's not only a country like America that goes into these areas. Let's be honest. All countries are doing it. China is doing it. Once you have corrupt leaders, China is there doing deals with them, giving them whatever monies they want or loans or whatever. That is the order of business. Everybody's taking advantage of those they cannot do for themselves. We open those doors, and it is guys like Donald Trump and China, Russia, and everybody else that sees it and goes in take what they need, and it's left for us to figure out what's the way next.
We just listened to this news bulletin on Greenland.
Breaking news to bring you now regarding the United States and Greenland. This is from Denmark's Prime Minister's office. A joint statement by President Macron of France, the Chancellor of Germany, the Prime Minister of Italy, of Poland, of Spain, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer as well, and Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen of Denmark. The joint signatories say the following: Arctic security remains a key priority for Europe, and it is critical for international and transatlantic security. NATO has made clear that the Arctic region is a priority, and European allies are stepping up. We and many other allies have increased our presence, activities, and investments to keep the Arctic safe and to deter adversaries. The United Kingdom of Denmark, including Greenland, is part of NATO. Security in the Arctic must therefore be achieved collectively in conjunction with NATO allies, including the United States, by upholding the principles of the UN Charter, including sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of borders. These are universal principles, and we will not stop defending them. The United States is an essential partner in this endeavor. As a NATO ally, and through the defense agreement between the Kingdom of Denmark and the United States of 1951, Greenland belongs to its people. It is for Denmark and Greenland and them only to decide on matters concerning Denmark and Greenland. The statement there from the Denmark Prime Minister's office, a joint statement with the leaders of France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, and Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, alongside that of the Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, talking about the security of the Arctic, talking of international and transatlantic security, talking about NATO as well, and also of the United States being a partner in security and territorial integrity. Finishing with the line, Greenland belongs to its people. It is for Denmark and Greenland and them only to decide on matters concerning Denmark and Greenland. Responses there to the comments made by the President of the United States in the last few hours, and indeed the last few months, that in Donald Trump's mind, Greenland is essential for US security, and that the US seeks to have control of the territory, bringing more developments, more reaction, and more analysis on that as we go.
That was a reaction by NATO allies to the repeated statements by President Trump. I think President Trump has rocked the boat, the political boat, the international political boat, in many ways that many of us never ever thought you would do. This kidnapping, because that's what it is, of Maduro, a sitting president, is unusual. Let's be honest about that. And he is now doing it at the time when even his own allies are not sure what he's going to do next. I think the world is very unstable at the moment. And I think this will have serious economic and political consequences. God knows what else President Trump is going to do next. And the price for that is going to be enormous, especially for small countries like Zimbabwe and most of the African countries, third world countries. Because the disruption to the economy will make the big countries like USA, Europe, China, Russia have a cold. But when they cough, we in the third world countries will start coughing blood. This is the tragedy of what has happened in America. The tragedy of electing President Donald Trump. The Americans themselves have got a chance of voting him out of office in 4 years' time. We, in countries like Zimbabwe, we never had that chance. In 45 years, we've never held free, fair, and credible elections. ZANU-PF has rigged elections to stay in power. This is the subtle difference between what is happening in America and the reality in countries like Zimbabwe that is under dictatorship. Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks?
What is happening in the world today? It simply, for me, is supposed to stand as an eye-opener to countries that are struggling under dictatorships. You are finding that once your people are struggling and are feeling the pain and are saying it out loud, other countries out there are hearing, and the people are open for any kind of takeover, whether hostile or not. Because I mean, look, if we were to go into Venezuela, and I think the media has shown how greatly divided the population is. Some are very happy to say, you did not know what we were going through. And it's all thanks to Donald Trump and America for coming through for us. So leave us be. And then obviously those that were benefiting from the regime are saying, no, we want our guy back. But my point is, once you have that door open, you essentially have lost half the war and you are prone for that hostile takeover. I mean, we have seen it in Zimbabwe, where people are greatly divided about the Chinese. Some are fighting the Chinese investors physically, where the Chinese are stabbing the locals, and the locals are bashing back the Chinese, and so forth. It's a mess as it is. And the Zimbabwean government has invited and have opened the doors for a takeover. And, you know, we can spend the whole day saying what America wants is oil. But I mean, look, for a country like Zimbabwe, what China wants are the resources as well. And like I said in the very beginning, all these countries, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, they have one thing in common: a dictatorship. We have failed to govern ourselves. We have a government that has failed to deliver anything for the people. And the people are open for hostile or whatever takeover just to get the relief. So, in conclusion, I would say, if you are operating under a dictatorship and know that your country is not performing and your people are disgruntled, the likes of America and China will not have even to open the door. The citizens will open the door for them, and then you will be in trouble. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. And thank you very much, the administrator, for all your background work. And those who want to join us again, please join us again tomorrow, 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. Good night.